welcome to another episode of our Parent Toolkit. I'm Pearlie from Young Innovators, and we created this toolkit just for you to help you optimize all facets of your health and wellness during this time. So today we have a very special guest with us. Her name is Dr. Grace Lee. So Dr. Grace Lee is a 2-time best-selling author, a neuroscience expert, and a career coach who specializes in elevating vocational wealth as well as a business consultant. She has a helpful podcast and YouTube channel where she helps people like you and me achieve a life with more joy, fulfillment, and success by figuring out our true life's purpose so that we can build a roadmap to more fulfilling work that we can call our career, just by being more of who we already are. A fun fact, Grace likes to do Muay Thai. She's been doing it for 3 years. So welcome, Dr. Lee. Great to have you here today.
Well, thank you for that wonderful introduction, Pearlie. It's my pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me as your guest.
It's so great to learn from all of your experience and all of the work that you've done. Now, before we started this whole parent toolkit, we did a lot of surveys of parents, and they came back with all of the questions that parents are concerned about at this time. So today we're going to ask all the questions related to work and career. And the first one right now on everybody's mind, what kind of practical strategies and steps do you think they should take now to lessen the impact of this pandemic for them and their family, as well as cope with the loss of a job?
That's a really complex question, right? And there's many components to it. Right. The first component I can see is the need to generate financial income, especially if you lost your job due to downsizing, layoffs, or some safekeeping that the company wants to do to protect themselves, and they're letting really good employees go. Right. So that's the first component. The second component is then around control of environment. Right? Because the fact is, this pandemic came unexpectedly, and with it comes a lot of risks, a lot of things, and unpredictability and uncertainty that we don't know where it's going, and we don't know when it will end, and what the new norm will look like even when this wave passes, the climax passes, right? So I'm going to address both of those things in turn. The first one is the need to produce financial income now. Right. So if you are listening to this and you have lost your job, right, and you are one of 2 income producing couples in your family, right, because how I look at it is your family unit is a team. You and your spouse are a team. If you are the mother, if you are the father, your spouse is your team member. And so if you are operating in a household of a dual income and one of you has lost your job, or has taken a substantial pay cut due to pandemic or factors outside of you that you have no control over, then it is important for you to understand what your numbers are. And what I call that is understanding your runway, right? Because most people, they go through the routine of going to work, bringing home the paycheck, paying the bills, but they don't understand the balance sheet of what's coming in and what's coming out. Right? And so in business, we call it a balance sheet, is really understanding to the dollar of what are the expenses that you're paying every day that go out, your outgoing, and what is the incoming, right? And maybe you have sources of income outside of your full-time job that you didn't factor in, but whatever that is, any income and outgoing, create a balance sheet so that you know what your runway is. So what's a runway? A runway is basically the amount of time that you have remaining. And so really, when you look at wealth is measured more in time than it is in money. And this is something that most people don't understand, because when we think of wealth, we think of how much money do you have in the bank, right? But the thing is, wealth is measured more in terms of time, right? And so the question really that you got to answer is, since you lost your job, or if you were to lose your job, right, how much time do you have left before that runs out? That is your runway. And so that's why wealth is measured more in terms of time. Because if your answer to me was, oh my gosh, I wouldn't be able to survive, then you don't have a runway. Or if your answer is 1 month, then I run out, then that is the wealth that is measured in time. It is 1 month. So you got to know what that runway is for you and your family, right? Because that is where you will have the resourcefulness. You need to rise in your resourcefulness in order to have income coming in right now. And so depending on your runway that will dictate the urgency and also the importance, how crucial it is for you to be able to find income coming in right now. And that might look like, depending on what the answer is, I don't know what the answer will be different for everyone, right? Depending on what that answer is for you, wealth is more measured in terms of time, right? So depending on what that answer is for you, then you might, the answer, the antidote, right, would then be that you need to have money coming in right now. And that might not mean that you're looking for your next career opportunity or the next step or the dream job, right? Or the job, right? Right, depending on what the financial need is. So that's why it's super important to have your balance sheet, right? And for you and your spouse to be able to talk about it as a team, right? And so that's one thing. The second thing that I wanted to address was the other side of the coin of that question around, well, this thing happened out in the world that we don't have control over. So how do we do to, what can we do to mitigate? What can we do to mitigate, right? And here's the thing, I will be direct. Mitigation happens when you are in preparation. Right now, the recession is happening, so there is no mitigation, right? So, right, mitigating necessarily means that you were preparing yourself before a thing that could happen, right? So the word here is not mitigate, because the fact is, anything outside of you that could happen in the world, in the economy, in your company, etc., you have no control over. So that said, it might feel like things are at a crisis right now. It may feel like there are more unknowns than before. But the fact is, there isn't any more unknowns than there was before. You're not in, right? The amount of stuff you can control outside of you, you can't control anything outside of you anyway. So it's actually not different with this economy than before. Right? There's not more or less things that you can control compared to before. It's still equally that you can't control anything outside of you anyway. So that is a mindset, right? That is a perspective that you need to have. Otherwise, not having that perspective will bring you into a spiral of, this is a crisis, there's nothing I can do about it. Because here's the principle, is that our wealth depends more on our personal philosophy than it does the external economy, right? And so if you want to create more wealth in this environment, if you want to create more wealth in your career, right, you have to stop looking at it in terms of, this is now a crisis, this is happening on the outside, I have less control. You don't have less control. You never had control outside of anything outside of you anyway, right? And so, right? So what you need to do is to go to someone, right? Go to the people who are creating success in this world right now. And then you have to find out from them the strategies, the systems, and the thinking behind, the principles behind how they got it, and invest in yourself to learn from them.
Right. So that's a very interesting way of thinking, that your wealth should actually be measured in terms of time, and that your personal philosophy creates your wealth. Okay. Well, in that case, what if someone wants to do a job search and, as you mentioned, go find the people who are successful right now? What might be the best strategies for that at this time?
The best strategies to reach out to people, or the best strategies?
Yes, reach out to people in a socially distanced and safe way.
Got it. Okay, gotcha. I was just wanted to understand your question. It's interesting. So society right now, this whole term of social distances was created as a result of the pandemic. Social distancing,
Mm.
social distance, keep a social distance. How do we do things because we have to keep a social distance? And here's the thing about the word social, right? Social has nothing to do with physical distance or physical separation between two or more people, right? So we are not socially distanced.
Mm.
Social distances means, if you are keeping a social distance from someone, it means you are deliberately not doing what you need to do to connect with them on a deeper level than on the surface. That means you're deliberately not taking an interest in the person you're talking to. So we are not socially distanced. We are in a physical distance organization, because that was the policy that was given to us that we need to do to stay safe and to keep our family safe and to protect ourselves, right? And not to pass on anything intentionally to another person. So it is physical distancing, but not social distancing. So with that in mind, actually, it is no different. The way that we reached out to connect with people before the pandemic is no different than the way that we reach out and to connect with people after or during, right? And it is because we struggle with that because we see it the other way. That's why we struggle with it, because we see it as a social distancing and not merely as physical distancing, right? And so what are the principles of building a relationship? That's all it goes back down to. What are the principles of it, right? It is having a heart to serve. What can I do for you first, not instead of what can I do for me? What's in it for me first, right? It is the art of giving value before you ask anything in return. Mm-hmm. Right? Zig Ziglar was the one that said, you can have anything you want in your life and in your business if you will help more people have what they want in theirs first. Then you can have anything you want in your business and in your life. And that is pandemic independent. It does not depend on a pandemic or an economic crisis, right? Because it is, right? Because social distances is our choice and how we initiate that interaction, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. And I firmly believe in the giving first principle of helping others first. I just wrote an article about that, like the art of digital networking for students and new graduates about this. So that's very true, Dr. Lee.
Awesome.
Okay. Well, what are some hacks, if you may, that parents can use to find balance when working from home? One mom wrote about the conflict that she gets when working from home because her children always need attention and are constantly interrupting her while she's working. And she can't bear not to give them that attention because they're young.
Got it. Okay. So it's interesting. Okay. So the word balance, right? Balance is on a spectrum. Balance is on a spectrum between balance on one end and focus on the other. When you have balance in your life, right? And you have family, you have friends, you have love, right? And you have your job and you have your income producing activities, then you have balance, right? And that's just when things are status quo. Right, you're producing, it is a routine of your life. You know that right after your workday, your kids need your attention, and then you go and give their attention, right? So when you have balance, you do not have focus. When you have focus, you do not have balance. So there are seasons where you are in focus, and there is a season when you need to be in balance, right? So if you are at home and your children are interrupting you, and you cannot bear to say no, right? It is because that is your highest value, because family is your highest value. Mm-hmm. But if you want to be creating a different result, right? And you see it as opposing the result of spending time with family, then that's where you have to take it back to, well, this is a spectrum. There are seasons when you need to focus on your career, and there's a season when you are focusing on your kids and in your family. They are not mutually exclusive, right? And so parents, when you have young kids, they need you, right? That's the bottom line. They need you, and in some sense you need them, right? Because they provide value in your life as well, right? And if the higher you place the value on family, the more you will put your focus there. And so if you want a different outcome and you want to produce something different in your career, then you need to take some of the value you place in family and also put an equal value, right? Put also on one of your highest values, career and vocation. Mm. Right. Everything else in terms of, well, from 8 o'clock, they need my time, my time, and then 9 p.m. is bedtime. All of that stuff that we struggle with, all of those things that really get to us and that we just lose balance over, those are just logistics. Logistics are never the needle movers. It's always the principles behind how we operate. So instead of focusing and worrying so much on logistics, it's better to understand a standpoint from who we are and what we truly value, right? Because we have a choice. If we want, we can shift our value in that moment or for that season. But it doesn't mean that you are putting your family second. Right? It doesn't mean that you're not a good parent, or it doesn't mean that you didn't provide well for your kids.
Yeah, you mentioned that there are seasons and our focus will be on different things depending on the season. That's a great analogy for it. Here's another question, Dr. Lee. What are your top tools and resources for career success for parents during this time with all the uncertainty going around?
Do you mean tools and success that I use, or tools and suggest that or that I provide? What?
Suggestions? Because you are a career revisionist, so I guess from your clients, what might be the thing that helps the most?
Okay, so what I've found in my history of career coaching, right? For doing
Mhm.
this for 10 years, what I've found is that the foundational pieces is understanding the principles of creating the career that you want, right? If you want to achieve true vocational confidence, and what I mean when I say vocational confidence is that you are on purpose, right? You are honoring your passion. You are doing something where you have proclivity, and proclivity is a natural tendency. In other words, you're good at it, and you are creating a profit from that. So those are four things: passion, purpose, proclivity, and profit, right? That is what we define as a vocational confidence, because you are fulfilled. If that is the direction you want to go, right, then it is actually more important to understand the principles of developing that pathway. And these are the things that we're not taught in school, right? These are the things that in school and in the indoctrination camps of formal education, we're told that the path to get there is to go to school, get good grades, and then you just apply to jobs, and then you try to stay in that job for as long as possible. And hopefully by the time you retire, that the company will take care of you, right? But we're now more than ever, people are very quickly coming to realize that we don't have job security like our ancestors did 2 generations ago, right? We don't have that anymore, because what they didn't tell you is that companies are downsizing, and it's not all because of the pandemic. It makes sense actually for companies to downsize and outsource, because it's actually more efficient for the company to do that. And so full-time jobs are disappearing.
Mhm.
And it's not only because of the pandemic, right? Shutdowns and layoffs, of course, it's happening because of bankruptcy, because of the pandemic. But despite that, full-time jobs are still disappearing. They started disappearing before COVID hit, right, in December. And so
Yeah.
what's really fundamental is to understand the principles of success, rather than what do I do? What are the strategies? Who do I apply to? What companies are still existing? Understanding the principles, and principles are important because they are microcosms of each other, which means that if they work for me, they must work for you, right? If they work in this area of life, then they also work in other areas.
Oh, interesting.
Correct.
Okay. Well, even for the parents who aren't searching for a job right now, so maybe they're financially stable for now, are there any smart things that they can do to make sure that they're prepping themselves up to be COVID proof,
Recession proof, right?
recession proof?
Yeah, how to recession proof your career. Actually, it's interesting. I did a training on that just a couple of weeks back. No, sorry, not a couple of weeks, a couple months back, when all the layoffs started happening and the bankruptcies started happening in companies. I did a live training on exactly recession proofing your career. Right. And so
Yes.
maybe I need to bring that training back up again, right?
Yeah.
But really, recession proofing is, first of all, fundamentally understanding the principles. And I keep going back to principles because we are so trained to look at the tactics and the strategies.
Mm.
But the thing is, tactics and strategies change depending on the time and situation. So if you are doing a tactic right now, next week that tactic might not work anymore. So that is not a way to prepare. To be recession proof is not to focus on tactics or tools or strategies, right? It is to understand the principles behind building a career, the principles behind creating wealth through career. That's what we want, to be able to provide for our families and to create legacy and generational wealth. So we have to understand and be a student of wealth creation rather than focus on the tactical strategies of the here and now, right? And that is really how you recession proof your career, is to understand those principles. And then from that standpoint, to achieve mastery in the domains that will get you to where you want to go, because knowing is never enough. And I know because I have been in college for 10 years. And college is really an accumulation of knowledge. You're accumulating, right? But we don't get paid for the knowledge we accumulate, for the information we accumulate. We don't get paid for that. We get paid for the wisdom we bestow, right? Because wisdom is what solves problems, right?
Yes.
Knowing is not enough.
Okay, so you've talked a lot about understanding our philosophies towards wealth creation and our values. What is one anything that parents can do right now to work on this by themselves, and also maybe look at analyze their mindset?
One thing that you can do is start to have clarity, have some clarity for yourself on where you want to be, right? Because we don't know, we can't plan the roadmap on getting there if we don't know what the final destination is, what it looks like, right? It's kind of like you have your cell phone and you're setting GPS, right? You can set a GPS, but before you even plan your route to get there, you must have 2 points. You must know where you're starting from and you must know where you're going. And then you can plan the route to get there. Do I want to go by highway? Do I want the shortest distance? Do I want to avoid traffic? Whatever that route is, that is when you can plan it. You must know your destination, your end point, and you must have clarity on your starting point. And most people don't actually have clarity on both, right? They think they have clarity on their starting point, but they don't. There's a lot about it that we need to become more aware of. And then definitely most people don't have clarity on what the destination looks like. And the reason why they don't have clarity is because they have resigned to feel that they don't have control over it. They've resigned over to the feeling that I can't do anything. So why even bother desiring something? Why even bother wishing for something? Because all of these things are just going to stand in my way anyway and thwart my plans. And so we work so hard towards the thing we desire, but we expect the opposite, right? We expect the opposite of what we're working so hard to desire. And that act, right, is disempowering.
Okay.
And that's what most people do. And they use their mouth and they use their thoughts to think themselves out of the success they want. And so it takes courage and more courage now to have clarity on what that final destination looks like, because for many reasons, and it could be that, well, I'm not successful? Then I don't want to be a failure. I don't want to fail, right? What if it doesn't work for me? Then what will people think? What will I feel? And so we don't dare to dream. We don't dare to have that clarity. But we can't plan. We can't move. We can't progress without first going through that. Because we can't become a champion until we go through challenge. We cannot get to prosperity before we have problems, right? And there is no destiny without first challenges. There is no destiny.
Exactly. I think fear is one of the great preventers of success, and everything too. So very well said, Dr. Lee. Okay, well, that's it then. We've reached the end of our questions from the parents. To summarize, in this era of working from home, Dr. Lee gave us great tips on how parents can navigate and prevent burnout with their children at home while they're struggling to get something done. Dr. Lee also gave us great insight on figuring out our personal philosophies and the roadmap of our career path and the things that can prevent us from reaching success, especially in the recession. Well, Dr. Lee, do you have any fun challenges for our parents to do after hearing our talk today? Is there something quick and easy that they can do to work towards all the things that you've mentioned, that they can do right now?
So here's the thing. We always look for quick and easy, right? We always look for instant gratification, quick and easy. And I am going to be direct.
Okay.
To get to success, to get to the wealth we desire for ourselves and our families, it's not about quick and easy, because we need to have persistency and consistency. Persistency because the path is hard, consistency because the journey is long. So we need to have both. I would be lying to you and I would be doing more of a disservice to you if I said, oh, here's a quick fix to generate wealth. Here's one way that you can overnight or in 1 hour move closer to where you want to be. I would be lying to you. And if anyone ever said that, don't listen to them, right? They're trying to sell you something that is not going to help, right? But I will tell you that anything that is meaningful in life and in family and in relationships, anything that is meaningful, that is worthy, that is worthwhile, it is hard. It is also hard, but that doesn't mean that you can't accomplish it, right? And so I will say that there is a challenge. that I will present to you. The challenge is that you have two choices, and your challenge is to choose one of them, right? The first choice you have is to take the information that I've given you right now, and you can try to figure it all out yourself, right? You can go and, Google stuff, go to webinars, you can read all the books on career development and wealth creation. You can do that and try to figure it out yourself. And through trial and error, hopefully that you will make some progress. That's one way you can do it. The second choice is that you can shorten the learning curve. You can invest in your future. Invest in your future by working with someone who understands the principles to success, who understands the path on how to get there, because they have walked the path you want to walk, and they have the success that you want to have. And so they see things that you don't. They have overcome challenges that you don't, and they see potential that you don't yet see. And they can give you a different perspective. So that is your second choice. And that will shorten your learning curve, and it will give you back the valuable time that you can have with your family instead of spending it in trial and error and trying to figure it out yourself. So those are your two choices. And that is my challenge to you. It is not easy, but it is meaningful, and it is worth the fight.
Okay, right. And I know Dr. Lee mentioned to think of wealth in terms of time. So how can you save more time in that regard? I know that Dr. Lee has created a ton of content related to helping men and women unlock their true vocational confidence and master their career. She has a lot of resources available that's complimentary on both her website and her YouTube channel. So make sure to give it a look. I will be linking to it underneath in the description of this video. Okay, so once again, thank you so much, Dr. Lee, for your time and for coming to share your pearls of wisdom with us today. It's really great to see you again and to hear about the work that you've been doing. So parents, I hope that you can follow the challenge for this week and to see where you can save your time and your personal wealth and career creation. Bye for now.